The Onondaga language, Newehaskano. My name is Tonya Gonnella Frichner. I'm Onondaga, a citizen of the Onondaga Nation, and my clan is Snipe. My Snipe clan name is Gowanus. And welcome. I am grateful to see that you are all well. And we are looking forward to a very, very nice evening. And we're glad you can share the evening with us and also have some food with us as well. We have a stellar panel, and we have some wonderful people in the audience. And if you don't mind, I'm going to make a couple of introductions. First of all, we have the people from the neighbors of the Onondaga Nation who are here, who are responsible for doing this amazing work. Would you stand up so folks can see? And thank you very much for your amazing work and your vision to bring us all here this evening. I'd like to recognize my extended family from the American Indian Law Alliance, and also the delegation that has been working diligently since last Monday, May 7th, across the street at the UN. I'd like to introduce Muriel Miguel Tarrant. Muriel? Thank you, Muriel. I'd like to introduce her husband, Kevin Tarrant. Kevin, thank you for negotiating the good price on the food. Yes. I'd like to introduce two more people in our delegation. Mr. Tony Simpson from the land of Australia. He's an international human rights expert and attorney and has been working with us and the Haudenosaunee these past week and a half. Tony? And I'd like to introduce a couple of friends, and also, last but not least, my dear friend, Dr. Alice Nash. She is a very dear friend of mine and agreed to come to the UN and just work and hang out, and she didn't hang out, she worked. Next year she'll know better. And one of my sisters, I'd like to introduce to you Judge Elizabeth Gonzalez. Ms. Gonzalez. Representing the Taino Nation. So this is the extended territory of the Haudenosaunee. So welcome to our territory, and we extend our warm greetings. We also have a chief with us from the Mohawk Territory, and Chief Howard Thompson. And Claudia will be doing our interpretation. We have Gail Tonzik from Indian Country Today. Gail, thank you for all your work. And we have a very special guest this evening, a parliamentarian from the government of Venezuela. She's an Indigenous sister and has done some amazing work for Indigenous peoples and women worldwide. It's such a delight to have you, dear sister. I'd like to introduce our esteemed panel. And they include, to my left, and I'm going to give you a little bit of background. Is it? Sue Eisholzer, am I saying it right? Sue Eisholzer. She's with the neighbors of the Onondaga Nation for many, many years. An activist and a therapist in Syracuse, New York, and she's also part of the two-row Wammo campaign, which you're going to hear about in a few minutes. Sue, thank you very much for your vision and for being here. Appreciate it. Andy Manger. Andy is with the Syracuse Peace Council. He's also with the Neighbors of the Onondaga Nation, and he's also spearheading this two-row wampum campaign that you're going to hear about in a little bit. Sitting next to Andy is Professor Phil Arnold. He's the interim director for Native Studies at Syracuse University and also a professor of religion, and a very dear friend of ours, and married to our Mohawk sister, Sandy Bigtree, who is the community knows you're a performer and a wonderful singer. And Ms. McDonald, Mary McDonald, is a professor of religion at Lemoyne College and has done some incredible work and writings on the doctrine of discovery. And sitting next to her is our sister from the Onondaga Nation. She is clan mother and Onondaga of the Turtle Clan, and a relative of mine, and an absolutely wonderful, wonderful woman. Please say hello to Frida Jock. We have one more speaker who is on his way. Why I burst out laughing a few minutes ago was because one of the Onondagas hasn't arrived on time. I was so stunned. So the Onondagas, they'll be here eventually. And Chief Jake Swamp, not Jake Swamp, I'm sorry, Edwards, passed away not too long ago. Chief Jake Edwards from the Eel Clan from Onondaga will be joining us, but he's going to be speaking towards the middle, so we thought we would get started anyway. What the panelists have asked me to do is to moderate this evening's panel, but to also give you a quick, very quick overview of what has been going on since last week across the street at main headquarters of the United Nations. It has been an amazing week and a half. For some of us, 2 weeks, going on a little bit longer. We began May 4th with our Global Indigenous Women's Caucus, which we held in this room. The following Saturday, the next day, Saturday and Sunday, we had a Global Indigenous Peoples Caucus. And then on Monday, the plenary session of the Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues began. And Indigenous peoples came together, the women came together to make their statement, the Global Indigenous Caucus came together to make their statement and presented their positions at the formal plenary session. Let me give you a quick background of the Permanent Forum. It is a subsidiary organ of the Economic and Social Council, which in the pyramid scheme of the United Nations is on a fairly high level. There are 16 members. 8 of the members are brought forward by governments. The other 8 are brought forward by indigenous communities and nations. The president who is sitting for the Economic and Social Council makes the final decision on who those permanent forum members will be. I have the privilege of serving as North American representative from 2008 to 2011. The terms are for 3 years. And the focus is on areas of human rights, economic and social development, environment, women, education. The mandate is broad, and the focus is very much on human rights. And the agenda items kind of change from year to year, but every year there's a theme, and this is kind of why we are here today, why the neighbors of the Onondaga Nation are here. And let me share with you the theme for this year. the 11th session of the Permanent Forum. And it is the doctrine of discovery, its continuing impacts on Indigenous peoples, and redress for past conquests, which include Articles 28 and 37 of the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. For those of you who are not familiar with the Declaration, it is the longest negotiated and debated human rights document in the history of the UN, and it brings forward human rights and collective rights for the very first time for Indigenous peoples throughout the world. It addresses our right to self-determination, and it addresses our right to free, prior, and informed consent, and covers a number of issues. My recommendation is you go on to the internet, get a copy of the Declaration, and keep it in your handbag, because we need to breathe life into this Declaration. It belongs to us, Indigenous peoples, but we must also force or gently encourage governments to use the Declaration as a framework for their relationships with Indigenous peoples within their own states. So it's something that's important for our people and important for non-Indigenous peoples as well. So it has been a busy week across the street. Being that the theme was the doctrine of discovery, I think I can say with all certainty there was a groundswell, an absolute groundswell of interest on the doctrine of discovery, this legal construct that basically says, and said 500 years ago, that Indigenous peoples are not human beings. And when you're not a human being, you don't have the right to own your own land, and you're basically invisible under the legal construct of terra nullius. The land is empty, therefore we can take it. But our experts are going to explain that a little bit further to you. And the good news to report is that the Anglican Church made a statement on the floor during the plenary session denouncing the doctrine of discovery, as did the Methodist Church, and that's universal. The World Council of Churches has also denounced the doctrine of discovery and asked for its removal totally. The only body that seems to be a little bit less cooperative in the negotiation process and less open to hearing this over 500 years of attitude and behavior of dominance towards Indigenous peoples is the Holy See. The Holy See managed to say the other day that the doctrine of discovery has no juridical, legal, or spiritual anything. And especially when you say spiritual to a room of 2,000 Indigenous peoples, it's a little disconcerting. But they said it, and they said it a few times. So our job is to gently let them see how they are wrong historically. And that's what we've been working on for many, many years now. And it's finally come to fruition. I would say 25, 30 years people have been working on this particular issue. It was a great deal of work to even get the issue brought to a formal session of the Permanent Forum, but here we are, and governments are responding, the faith community is responding, and Indigenous peoples are taking the leadership and explaining what this doctrine is and its 500 years of effect on Indigenous people.